Some of you might realize that I lost my service dog back in November. So, when I tell you how excited I was to do this interview with Tara Moriarty from the Therapeutic Canine, I have been just chomping at the bit for this. We go over so many things that I think are so important, and we don't really, there's no guideline on getting a service dog. And she goes into incredible detail about when you should really consider getting a service dog, the questions you have to ask yourself before you even start looking at those adorable faces, and also you can expect to pay, and some red flags, some green flags for trainers and for breeders, and also whether the breed matters or not. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. I definitely did. And I think I might have convinced Tara to come back a few more times to give us a full look at this. We could not cover everything in an hour. So we're going to do, I'm hoping, like at least a 6-month long series where we talk about from the very beginning of I think I might need a service dog all the way through training. So I hope you join us with that. I hope you follow Tara. If you go over to our website, you will find under show notes direct links to her. So if you have questions, if you are looking for her help, she does do a virtual training session. So anywhere in the world, you can absolutely hire her. And if you have questions that you would like us to discuss while we're going through this series, just let us know. You can hit us up. I will have Tara's social in our show notes. Our socials are very easy. It's just at Invisible Not Broken. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you want to see Tara's really cute dogs, consider following us on our YouTube channel because, oh my goodness, I don't think I'm going to edit this out because it was just so cute and fun for us to be talking while the dogs were being dogs. So join us, be kind, be gentle, that includes with yourself, and be fierce.
Hi everyone, I have been waiting for this interview. I have been so excited. You might have seen me post and ask for questions. I'm going to interview Tara Moriarty, who runs the Therapeutic Canine. As some of you know, I lost my service dog about 2 months ago, which is still breaking my soul and heart. And now I'm looking for a new one. So while I was scrolling through TikTok, I ran across Tara and begged her to come onto the show. So hi, Tara.
Hello.
So I
Hello.
wanted to know a little bit how you started this. Did you need a service dog? Did this just
So,
be a need you needed? You saw and you're like, I know how to fill that need.
it's kind of an amalgamation of a couple different things. I do need a service dog. I do have my own service dog. I got into dog training before I realized I needed a service dog, so that was very convenient for me because service dogs are expensive.
Do you want to give everyone
But
a
I grew
rundown
up in
on how much? I don't think people realize how much that costs.
if you're buying one from a program that's fully finished, you're looking at anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000. The nonprofits that give away service dogs, either for low or no cost, usually under $1,500, but 15,000 would be considered a low cost service dog. And those, because they're nonprofits, they have to post all of their stuff online for you to see. So their dogs cost them as a business around $40,000 to $60,000 to train. And there's other less expensive ways to train a service dog, but then you end up having to do the majority of the work yourself. And that can still be pretty expensive depending on how much dog training skill you already have and how much you need to pay to learn to do the training.
And so
They're not cheap.
this is like where I'm like spinning. Just like personally, and I'm sure like if you, as you realized that you needed a service dog, you were like, this doesn't feel feasible because a lot of the lower cost programs you have to live in for a while.
So the problem with the lower cost ones is they're very limited as to what service dogs they give to people. So if you are blind and you need a guide dog, you're good. Those are the most that you have the most options. Those are usually free. If you're a veteran and you have PTSD, you have a lot more options these days as well. And there's a couple other like mobility type things that are fairly common and easier to find help for. But if you've got something like POTS or you have a need for a psychiatric service dog and you're not a military veteran and other little smaller things that aren't quite as well known, you're kind of shit out of luck. It's hard to find a nonprofit that is even creating dogs for you, unfortunately. By the time I realized I needed a service dog, I was already training service dogs, so I was not worried. I was just like, oh, this will just be my next something that I do with one of my dogs. I got lucky in that regard, but yeah.
How did you get into training dogs?
So I got into training dogs because I had a crazy dog.
I can relate.
Most trainers. Yeah, as is true for most trainers. I had gotten my first dog out of college. I never had dogs growing up. My dad was allergic, so it just wasn't a thing that we did. I got a foster dog for the last 2 weeks of college, right before finals. The local shelter was like, "Hey, college kids, you want to hold some puppies for us?" And of course,
That is
like,
unfair. That's almost as predatory as student loans.
I still have that dog. He's wonderful. He's the best. He wasn't the problem child. It was the second dog that came in. My ex named the dog Havoc, and he promptly lived up to that name.
Careful on naming things, people.
Oh yeah. And he was a super sweet dog, but he was very fearful, and he would show his fear with his teeth. He had no issues about that, even at 4 months old when we first got him. And he grew up to be a 75-pound German Shepherd Husky mix. So it was a lot.
Oh,
It was a lot.
one of those. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
if you are listening to this online, I highly recommend going over to our YouTube channel. You can find us at Invisible Not Broken on YouTube, and you get to see dogs. And
This
in
is
this
Donnie.
day in the world, you get to see dogs. Like this is what makes people happy right now.
I didn't know you could see me, but this is Bug.
Oh.
This is the college kid.
I want to
Puppy
snuggle
that I
that dog
got.
more than I can express. Like that
He
hit
would
my
love
heart.
it. That is his
Yeah.
favorite thing. He's actually a therapy dog, so that is his all-time favorite.
That makes my heart so. Yeah, he had like the exact expression that my little service dog used to have. Like looks like way too much like Kirk, and I was like, I really miss my puppy now.
This one's Donnie. He was my current problem child. He's not a problem so much
He
anymore,
does not.
But
He says you're lying. Those puppy eyes say mom is apt. I am an angel. I have never done a wrong thing in my life. No, he absolutely just he called you out.
Don't believe him. Nobody is lying to your face.
A halo and wings go by when he walked behind you. No, that dog, angel dog.
He is wonderful. He is my kind of dog. I love his personality, and all of the things that were problematic with him are like my favorite things. So it works out well. But he was going to be euthanized because he was not able to be placed into a home because of all of his shenanigans.
And it's also a breed that people just see that face shape and they're like, oh no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
this face shape, and his favorite thing at the time was to be jumpy, mouthy, bitey, boing, boing, boing all over the place and biting at the leash, biting at clothes, biting at whatever was closest. And that was how he said hi. So he was biting people out of love, but biting people.
Yeah, I can see where, like, I mean, I love dogs, and that would make me very nervous.
Yeah, he's a lot of dog, but he's a good boy. You can't go steal the snacks from over there, though. That's cheating.
So how did you teach yourself how to, or did you take classes at first? You saw you had a dog that really was going to be a problem, and you had to solve it. And to hire a dog trainer can be very expensive. So I'm guessing you taught yourself, or you took a class and learned something.
So we did hire a dog trainer. So when we got a dog trainer, I was living with my ex at the time. I was married back then. We ended up sending Bug away to a board and train for 4 or 6 weeks. And then the trainer came and worked with Havoc in person like once a week during that time. So we did put a lot of money into getting some training help. Unfortunately, the training style that we went with was not the best because that was just what was available, and that's what sounded good. That's what sounded like it would help based on what I was researching at the time, knowing absolutely nothing about dogs. Having only gotten my very first dog in my whole life 2 years before. Not even. Hey, can you chill, baby? Problem child. But so I did that for a while. I got really into that side of training. So just for the non-dog people out there or anybody listening in who's unaware that there's this huge war in the dog training world, there's a methodologies war. It's not that serious, but
just read
people have big opinions.
Parenting TikTok. It's the same, almost exact argument as dog talk.
Same thing. It is the exact same thing, but with 2 different outlets.
Go for it.
Yeah. But yeah, so I found a trainer that used prong collars and e-collars on pretty much every dog she worked with, and she was a good trainer. Her intentions were good. So I don't want to like say that she was a terrible person because she wasn't. And she helped me a lot at the time. But I had a prong collar on my 4-month-old puppy, and by the time he was 6 months old, I had an e-collar on him. And instead of seeing his behavior for what it was as fear and the need to feel safe, barking, lunging, biting that he was trying to do was seen as disrespectful and rude, and we had to stop it with punishment, which ended up making the behavior a lot worse over time. So I worked with that trainer for a couple of years, actually on and off, not quite to the level of a mentorship, but close, because I was always asking her questions. But we got to the point where she couldn't really give me any more information to help with Havoc because Havoc was still having all these problems. And his main problem that stuck with him that I could not get rid of until 3 years later was he was afraid of his crate and would resource guard it at the same time. So he'd run in, flip around, stick his head out, and try to bite you as he closed the door. Because he didn't want to be in there, but he also didn't want you touching it. So we managed most of the other behaviors that were problematic. We played whack-a-mole until they only appeared in that situation, unless there was something like big change going on, then all the other ones would pop back up again. But then we moved. My ex was in the military. I was also in the military for a while. He was active duty. I was the reserve. So we moved to another state, several states over. And the move was hard on the dog Havoc. He did not like that. It was hard because moving is new and scary, and he was still terrified of the world, and we still didn't know that. Landed myself in a 6-month dog training master trainer course with the same style of training. Okay, can I get you something that will help you be quiet for this? Maybe? You had something and you ate it way too quickly. Can you be a little slower with this one? Thank you.
I promised he would be slower with this one. I heard it. He said yes, absolutely. Give me the thing. It will get a full 3 nanoseconds instead of 1.
Yeah, I give it maybe 2 minutes, but
maybe.
Hopefully he'll settle. He's learned very well that if I'm on Zoom, I'm trying to do something. So if he misbehaves, he can get whatever it takes to shut him up. That is a training problem that I
and dog TikTok. That kids and dogs almost don't be offended. I'm going to go ahead and be offended. I don't have enough energy to care. But I swear, the stuff you're talking about, I think any traumatized child just hurt you. And anyone who had post-trauma, as a kid, where your fear responses were met with, that's disrespectful, go to, and so you all, if you've experienced that, you probably ended up stopping the behavior in front of your parents. This is
Yep.
You cannot think about another creature saying that doesn't have empathy and sympathy and understanding, because that's very similar to how as children we reacted. So when we trained our dogs with fear, and
yeah,
sorry, that's just a little predilection I have. We had a dog trainer who was very that guy, that guy, and I won't train a dog without prong collars and e-collars. You gotta put your foot in front. We're done here, thank you. I realized I just paid you $300 for you to tell me how to be mean to my dog, but and I'm sure you think it's a good idea. I could not do it.
Yeah.
Then again, I'm not a great mom either. I'm so bad at punishing my children. I'm horrible at all of this. Discipline is not my strong suit. For myself too.
I've gone from one extreme of the dog training world to the total complete opposite, where I was that person too for a while of do it or else because I said so. Because I kind of grew up that way. I was in the military, which is very much that way.
Handle fear responses in the military and give you
no
cookies and milk.
No. Do it because
better military. I think I'm just saying.
But then, as I was going through all this training and stuff, and it wasn't working. So that school I went to, that 6 months of school, I learned a lot. I learned a lot of cool stuff. But it didn't help my problem. So I went specifically because they were supposed to be some of the best people to work with aggression. And I didn't actually learn how to make any difference in Havoc's behavior in the entire 6 months. I learned to throw hot dogs in the back of the kennel and close the door faster. That was about it. Because none of the things that they do to stop behavior like that work. Because their choices were punishment, right? So you're barking at me, I'm going to make it stop. And Havoc very much said, no. You tell me no, I'm going to tell you no back. And it's going to be twice as loud. So after leaving that school, I started looking for other things. And it took another couple of years, but I finally found my way all the way to the other end. Now I would consider myself a positive reinforcement based or a force-free dog trainer, which I find laughable because 7 years ago I was the total opposite. And I laughed at trainers like me and I thought they were stupid because you have to tell your dog no. Turns out you don't. And it actually works better when you don't. But TikTok told me it's the same thing because when I got on TikTok, I found the dog trainers and I found myself on gentle parenting TikTok. And I have no children and I have no plans to have children. But because of the way I work with dogs, I am on gentle parenting. Yeah, I hear that. It's very entertaining. Because the similarities.
I didn't have Instagram, TikTok. I don't think was even existing when I had my kids. But the gentle parenting was I was using it on both. I was using it on our dog and on the kids at the same time, and that was really helpful. And in my marriage, people think gentle parenting is oh, this is what you do as someone who's you're in charge of. No. This is a kind way to be with other people and to help someone who is frozen in a moment and to help them communicate. Anyway, gentle parenting and dog training has a lot in common.
And I do think that there is still that misconception that if you're, gentle parenting or you're using force-free training, your dogs have no rules or your children children have no rules, there's no boundaries, there's no discipline. That's not true. You can have discipline and boundaries without having to tell them no. I ask more questions. Like, was that really what we were supposed to be doing? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how that works in dog training world, but in parenting world, it's like, is this the relationship you want with me?
Yeah.
Because if you're not telling me the truth, I don't get to have the relationship I want with you. I don't know if that's what you want with me. And man, if that didn't work well, I was panicking. I just pulled whatever I could out of my head when I'm dealing with a 12-year-old. I was like, I don't know what to do here. We're just going to talk to you like I would talk to my friend.
Yeah.
It worked out.
It worked. I found that it works very well. It is, obviously you can't talk directly to a dog in the same way. But if mistakes are happening, that tells me I'm doing something wrong and I'm not communicating well enough. And we developed like a communication system between us. So my dogs can tell me what they need, not with verbal words, but my dogs are pretty clear about what they want when they want. And I have a way to say, sure, we can do that, or not right now. That's not something we can currently do without having to use punishment. So it works out very nicely, I find.
Do you know when, like, maybe this isn't your area, we could definitely like work with that, but when do you know you need a service dog? Like, I feel like it's almost like a wheelchair. No doctor told me, they actually told me the opposite, and I really needed a wheelchair. So, and I don't think any doctor, like, unless blind, or like the main things you think about the service dog, are like, this might help you. I think that a lot of people with POTS or diabetes or heart murmurs, like, or ADD or post trauma, no one sits you down and goes, hey, this might really change your life. When do you think it's like time to consider?
I think people consider it way too late most of the time, especially because I work mostly with psychiatric service dogs. I'm autistic, I have ADHD, I've got some other physical stuff going on too, but like that's my main stuff. That's the main reason why I have a service dog. I found out I needed one because I was training a service dog for a program, and then the service dog went home and I felt worse going out about my daily life. And I was like, oh no, I needed that. So you can find out that way, but that's a hard route to get into to find out. And especially when it comes to psychiatric service dogs, most people are kind of in that mindset of, I'm not bad enough to need it. That I feel like that comes hand in hand with psychiatric disabilities in general, though, that kind of thought process, line of thinking.
No, this one. I've seen this carousel ride.
But my first thought is, if you're thinking about a service dog, you should probably look into a service dog, because people who don't need them don't think about them like that. They're not going to consider it as an option if that's not something they do, unless they just have a dog that they just want to. There's people that are doing dumb stuff that are just taking advantage of the system. But most people who are thinking about, do I need a service dog, and worrying about not being sick enough or bad enough to need one, those are the people that probably need them the most. A lot of times people start thinking about service dogs when it's a little too late, because that is something that most people don't know, is you can actually be too disabled to have a service dog. Because if you can't take care of yourself enough day to day, you definitely can't take care of a dog who, although the dog will be helping you and taking care of you, they're still a dog. They don't have thumbs. There's a lot of things they can't do for themselves, and they're going to have days where they just can't do work, because sometimes they get sick, sometimes they get hurt, sometimes they just have a bad day because they're living, breathing creatures. So it's this point at which you're not able to go out and do your daily tasks well, but if you had a friend who could go with you, you'd be able to accomplish more. That's around the time frame where I would start looking into it, because that shows you that little bit of extra support, even if it's just that emotional support, that's enough to help you throughout your day. That's when you should start looking into one. Emotional support is not a service dog task, so I just want to make that clear, because that was kind of a bad example to use, because that can't be the only thing a service dog does. But, if you're going out shopping with a friend, they're probably helping you push the cart or helping you in other ways other than just emotional supportive being. Something that a dog can be trained to do, then a service dog can do it. So
that's a good guideline. Does breed matter, or is there a particular breed you think would work particular? And this is a total guys, it's a podcast. I'm just getting advice here. Thomas, what do you feel like I've heard different advice on what kind of breed to get, and then I've heard it doesn't matter. So I'm really curious if you feel like there's, like, in an ideal world, this is the dog I would definitely choose for service dog. But if you already have a dog and you're training it, that's okay. I'm just curious where you land on that.
So in a broad sense, breed doesn't really matter. Temperament matters most. So a dog has to be confident. They have to be stable in any environment. They have to be interested in working with you. They have to enjoy it and have fun with it and have a desire to do things with you. And they have to be able to be calm, cool, and collected around dogs, kids, animals, busy city life, quiet rural life, anything and everything, like the epitome of a perfect dog, which is hard to come by. So if you have a dog with that temperament, the breed is irrelevant. And legally, you can have a service dog of any breed. That being said, finding dogs of that temperament, hey, Donnie, you can't steal his stuff. This is
Oh my
speaking
god,
of
seriously.
temperament.
Like watching I will release this unfiltered on YouTube just because I have been like, if you see my face, I am trying not to laugh half the time because the side eye this dog gives make me just reconsider my entire life. Like this dog gives the stankiest side eye. I would be like scared for like my soul, like looking into that dog's eyes. Like he sees everything, knows everything, and does not approve.
Remember how I said they're good at communicating what they want? Yeah,
yeah.
He wants me to be doing something else.
This is hilarious. So the breed doesn't necessarily matter. But
yes. So the breed doesn't matter. Donnie, you can't be doing that.
But if you're trying to narrow
breed,
down, like no particular person in mind here, but if you're trying to narrow down what kind of puppy to get, I've heard like poodle, German Shepherd, Labrador.
Yeah, so the breed doesn't necessarily matter, but the likelihood of finding the perfect temperament in the vast majority of breeds is like 1%. So they're called the Fab Four, which is silly because there's really only 3 breeds that people recommend anymore.
Okay.
But it's Labrador Retrievers,
Ringo,
Labrador Retrievers, Golden Retrievers, Standard Poodles, and then the 4th of the Fab Four, depending on who you ask, is either Collie or a German Shepherd. Both Collies and German Shepherds don't always make the best service dogs. They are sometimes a better choice than other breeds, but I wouldn't consider either of them part of like the Fab breed because they have more sensitivities that can pose more problems, so they're a little bit more difficult to work with. And I say that with a German Shepherd as my current service dog. Do as I say that as
mine was a Malinois mixed with a Shepherd. And it was not intended that he would be my service dog. He just decided that was his role.
Yeah. So Labs, Goldens, and Poodles are the standard because those breeds specifically, the hunting stuff they've been bred to do actually works out perfectly with what you would need a service dog to do. They're ready to go all day, go out somewhere, hang out, be calm, and like sit still and be bored for most of the day. Then the hunter sees something. They shoot the thing, then the dog gets to go run, do a big activity, bring the thing back, and do something for their human, and then they go back to chilling and doing nothing. And that is service work. Is you're sitting around 90% of the day just hanging out while people go about their daily lives, which is usually working and usually requires sitting still and doing nothing. And then every once in a while you have to get up and do something. And it's really important when you do it, and you should be enthusiastic about it and on point and looking for that. And then you settle back down again.
I just realized you called me a Labrador, and I'm totally fine with it. Totally good. Okay.
Labs are pretty great. I have accidentally become a lab person. So I never thought I would be, but I have accidentally become one, working with them as service dogs. They're wonderful.
I wish the general public actually knew about service dogs, because I feel like there's a lot of miscommunication, especially with emotional service dogs. Not to say that's not a very important part of the service dogs, but there are people who do not have properly trained emotionally service dogs or just are bringing in pets to public spaces. Is there something you wish just like the public knew about service dogs that you were like, I could tattoo this across the sky?
There are so many things. I have many things. There's a lot.
That's just the rest of the episode right now. Here is what I want you all to know.
Pretty much. There's a lot of things. And it's just a lot of the internet hasn't helped. But so the main thing, one big thing is that service dogs and emotional support animals are legally 2 different things. They both serve important roles, but they are legally 2 very different things, and they often get misconstrued for the same thing, especially when we're talking about psychiatric service dogs. Service dogs are task trained in order to mitigate a disability specifically, and they're trained for public access. But legally speaking, they have to be non-disruptive in public, potty trained, and know at least one task that mitigates that person's disability. That's the bar. The bar is on the floor, but that's the bar. A well-behaved dog that does at least one thing to help you with you having a disability.
Real quick question about that. Can a manager ask your dog to perform that task to prove that?
No. So stores and businesses and public places that you go into with your service dog, they can ask you 2 questions. The first question is that a service animal? Yes or no? And then the second question is, what task or work does your dog perform to mitigate your disability? So you can tell them If you don't want, like, you do not have to disclose your disability. So I don't have to say I'm autistic because that's not what task or work my dog does for me. That's just what I have. But you can say something like, my dog does nonviolent crowd control for me. So he stands behind me and does body blocks. So I have like a personal space bubble. So I say he does that.
Oh my God, that's a thing.
And there's a couple other things. That is a thing. It is so handy. People. It's my most used task.
If you want this, zebras, this is what you want, Ehlers-Danlos people. You want crowd control. Oh my God.
Yes. And there's another form of crowd control where the dog circles around you. I trained my dog in that. I didn't actually find it useful for myself. I felt it drew too much attention to me and that set off my anxiety. But I know a lot of people who really love it and find it very helpful. So all of these things, service dog tasks are very specific to the individual, and everybody's service dog is going to be a little bit different. So, but when it comes to tasks, as far as legal tasks and what that can be, is it has to be something that's trained. So that means emotional support doesn't count, because any animal can give you emotional support just by existing. So the dog
my
has
cat
to do
does that, by
something.
the way. My cat has like written across her pillow. Just saying. Yeah. They are very good at emotional support.
I would make the argument that it should be more legalized because there are so many people that would benefit from it. And as long as those emotional support animals are then trained to the same level as service dogs, we wouldn't have as much of a problem. And I think part of the reason why there's so many people bringing dogs into spaces where they don't belong is because they actually do need them. They just don't know how to go about it legally. And I think that's kind of unfortunate.
That's such a great, compassionate, and true take on this, because no one wants a dog that's misbehaving. That's real suffering. That I know this because I had a misbehaving dog. God damn it. Suffering you experience, it's like you're like, I swear he's a good boy, but I literally don't know what else to do, and I can't keep this dog locked up. Like, that's a really good way to phrase that. What would you do to solve that problem? Like, because everyone who has dogs, like, especially as you mentioned, sometimes you get too sick for a service dog. But a lot of us with degenerative diseases, we start with that place, but then we end up in another place where we're not able to give the care to the animals we thought we could. What do you think is the solution there? Is there anything?
If you have some kind of degenerative issue going on, my first thing would be, definitely take advantage of the service dog while you can. They're going to be very helpful, especially as your disease progresses. They're going to be able to help you more. But you also need to have a plan in place for what happens when you can't take care of the dog anymore. And for some people, if they live in a family, that's easy. My spouse will take care of the dog. My child will take care of the dog. My child over the age of 16, at least, please don't put a 5-year-old in charge of a dog. Somebody else in the house will take care of some of those things that I can't do anymore. If you live alone, that's going to look different. So you're going to have a plan of, who can I rehome this dog to when I can no longer have that help me? Like, or where do I go? Because I will also then need the help myself. If I can't take care of a dog, I can't take care of myself either, probably. So where am I going? And can that place where I go be a place where my service dog can come with me? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Depending on the place and the level of support and what their setup is like. So you would definitely need to have a plan in place as to what happens with the dog once you hit that point.
That's a really good. We see this in like shelters all the time, and I'm just wondering if there's like some sort of charity or service that helps like people who have like out their ability to care for their service dog is beyond what they can do, and then they can rehome the service dog somewhere. I just wonder if there's like some sort of like, and if there doesn't exist, or it does exist and not in your state, hey, look into making this. That's not a bad nonprofit to create.
I've never heard of anything like that. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But I've personally never heard of any.
That's what I've been looking for. So you have free time on your hands.
Shelter dogs. Yeah, with my work with shelter dogs, I also know it's hard just finding places for any dog right now. So that is a problem no matter what kind of dog it is, unfortunately, looking for a new home. So if it's somebody with a service dog, when I'm talking to them about starting the service dog journey, that's one of the things we talk about, is to already have a plan in place before you bring the dog into your home.
What else do you want people to know? That's brilliant. And I don't think anyone, like, that's like people who get married and they're like, we're not doing therapy before marriage. We're going to like plan a wedding. I used to be a wedding photographer, by the way. So just first example popped into my head. So what else? Because like people don't always think, like, even like, a family is just getting a puppy. They're like, we need a crate, we need food, pee pads, leash. We're good. What do you want people to know and to understand before they bring home a service dog? What should you be considering before you go down that journey?
So there's a whole bunch of things. The first thing would be, can I support a service dog day today? Is that going to help me or hurt me over time? What can a service dog do for me? Are these things that are actually helpful? Or are these things that I think might be helpful, but I don't know? If you don't know, I would try to test drive stuff if you can. Sometimes that's hard to do. But coming up with a list of things that will be helpful for you so you know where you're going with the training. Then looking for the breed that's going to be best for you. Labs, Goldens, and Poodles all have very different temperaments. If it is your very first service dog, please, I am begging, use a lab, a Golden Retriever, or a Poodle, even if you don't think you like them. They are going to make it easier on you on your first go around training a service dog. Because you'll also likely be learning how to do dog training at the same time, and learning how to do dog training and train a service dog to a high level of training, all with a dog that is not suited for that, is going to make it way harder than it needs to be. And we are getting service dogs because we are disabled and we need our lives to be easier, not harder. So lab, golden, or poodle, please, and thank you. um, you have opinions on this too, Donnie?
Left out. He's like, dude, I did not hear my breed in here, and I am the best boy. Look, I am the best boy. Look at that.
You would be a terrible service dog. He barks at he's dog reactive, and he was stranger reactive when I got him. Now he is just dog reactive, but none of that is good for service dog.
Real quick, before we go into another thing,
trainer.
I am ADD.
Have a trainer lined. Yeah. So dog breed, where the dog's going, if something happens, what tasks you want him to train, and find a trainer. If you can find a trainer before you purchase a dog, the trainer will probably help you find a good dog too.
That's a really good point. How do you go about finding a good dog? I've been looking like crazy, and it's so hard to, even if you go to the AKC website, the prices like for a Labrador, I've seen like 1,500 to like, I'm not going to say, but the prices are very different. And then I don't understand the world well enough to know, does the price mean a better dog? Or how do you choose a good breeder if that's the way you're going? Or do you feel like you could go to the SPCA or a Foster and get a dog and train it?
I would find a dog trainer to work with. Okay. That is the best answer for that, is find a dog trainer who regularly works with service dogs in order to help you find a good service dog. You can find one in a shelter. There are plenty of people who have service dogs that came from a shelter and make wonderful service dogs. But if you're going into a shelter by yourself and you don't know how to read dog body language and understand what the temperament of the dog is going to be, and how being in the shelter affects that temperament and how it might look different out in the real world, you're going to set yourself up to fail. So bring somebody who knows what they're talking about. And then also, dog trainers will know how to find breeders. They'll know how to find people who can breed the right kind of dog. They'll know what to look for in a breeder. They might even know breeders locally to you. But if you're looking into breeders yourself and you want to kind of find some options as you're also maybe looking for a trainer, look for breeders who have proven that they can make service dogs happen. You'll see breeders that have had, multiple generations of their dogs go on to be service dogs. That's the breeder you want to work with, versus somebody who says, I do breed labs or Goldens to do hunting and service dog and sport and this and that and the other, but they don't have any examples of dogs that have actually made it as a service dog. I would not probably go with that person. Because if they can't, if the lines of dogs, the generations of dogs haven't proven they can do the work, you're taking a much bigger risk that the dog you get in isn't going to be able to do the work than if you buy from a breeder who has proven that.
How do you call each breeder and say like, hey, are your puppies like helping people, or are they just out hunting, or like, how do you find out if that's actually the thing, or how do you find out that that's not the thing that they say?
Yeah, so a lot of breeders who do train or do breed for service work will put it on their website because it's something they're proud of. It's something they want to share with everybody who comes to find their dogs. They want it to be known that this is what they do. And a lot of breeders will have examples. So maybe it's not necessarily on their website. Sometimes it's the dogs they're breeding. Like, I am breeding this dog A to this dog B, and dog A and dog B are both successful service dogs, or they have on their Facebook page or their social media, like, oh, this dog from litter A has graduated their service dog training now, and this dog from litter B has been a working service dog for like 6 years now, or something like that. I will say, though, there's a lot of breeders, especially older breeders, that are probably more experienced, that just don't have a website or anything helpful to find information on them. So then sometimes you do have to kind of call around and know people who know people to be able to find them, which sucks but that's kind of how you know they're a really good breeder in some ways, is that people know about them. They know their dogs are really good, and you have no way to find them unless you know somebody who knows them, because you usually have a pretty long wait list to get a puppy from them as well at that point. That's why they're hard to find. There's no need to advertise.
That's yeah, I think that's what I'm running into there. And so I have the same question that for service dog trainers, because we're like, I'm on TikTok, and then you see the really flashy trainers who are like, I just got this dog who mauled a person 5 minutes ago, and now it is walking loose leash by my side in just 60 seconds of being around me. We get a lot of like showmanship. I'm thoroughly entertained, by the way. I cannot tell you how many dog training videos I watch of like the Malinois climbing up walls. Entertainment, I guess. Crazy world. But how do you find a good dog trainer, and what should you really be looking for? And also, I know that the cost is going to vary depending on where you're at, but what can you just like ballpark expect to pay? So like, what should you be looking for? What are the red flags? What are the green flags? And a general idea of cost.
We'll start with cost because that's the easier answer. On average, you're looking at paying around $150 to $200 an hour for private dog training. Some places you can find it lower. Some places, some trainers in particular, it's a lot higher. But $150 to $200 per training lesson, per hour of training lesson, is pretty standard for the majority of trainers, at least the ones that I know in my area and the people that I've been around. And some of the business programs that I've been in, that's where they kind of recommend. And if you're looking for like a board and train, you're looking at roughly $1,000 a week that you're going to spend, and that's pretty standard. So if you do a 4-week board and train, expect to spend $4,000 or more. They're not cheap. So that's
the most expensive hobby you can have. Like, there's no more expensive hobby you can have than to get disabled.
Yeah. Luckily, though, for like service dog training, there's a lot of people that are putting on like group programs or like in person or online group training classes and other lower cost options. And there's even a lot of free stuff out there, free information out there. I can't always guarantee it's good information because it's free, but there are resources out there that are lower cost. But the lower the cost, the option is, generally speaking, the more work you have to do yourself to make it happen. But then how do you find a good dog trainer? That's a hard one because our industry is unregulated. People can say one thing to your face and do something totally different with your dog. My recommendations are to find a dog trainer that you click with. So if you can snoop through their social media, and if you resonate with a lot of what they're saying, if what they're doing and how they interact with their dog makes you feel good, and you like the relationship that you see they've built with their dog, and you like the interactions that they're having with their dog, and they're not saying things that don't make sense to you, or if they don't make sense to you, the explanation helps it make sense. And I would talk to people. So like, call the trainers that you're interested in and have a conversation with them. Most of us will do phone consultations because we also want to know if we want to work with you and if we're going to click, or if it's just going to kind of suck for a while because we don't like each other. And it doesn't work out very well if you start working with a dog trainer and you don't get along with the dog trainer. So that would be priority one. But from like a training perspective, I would look for people who are more positive reinforcement based. As a force feed trainer, surprise, I want you to go to other force feed dog trainers.
But even if you were to choose a trainer,
but even if somebody is like wanting to have the knowledge of how to use like a prong collar or an e-collar, look for a trainer who uses those tools, but also uses a lot of positive reinforcement, because they are actually able to teach dogs things. Not to hate or diss on trainers that use a lot of corrective tools in their training, but smashing down stuff and stopping things is not the same as teaching. And the more they use those training tools, the less actual teaching is occurring. Behaviors are formed, stuff is learned. They are doing something. And I say this as somebody who used to train that way, so hopefully I don't offend too many. I'm ruffling all sorts of feathers in the dog training world.
No, I just thought that was just such a brilliant bit. I was like, oh my God, like I want that, like that works for people too.
But especially for service dogs, you cannot force a dog to do service work. They have to want to do it, or they're just not going to do it. So if you are in a medical episode, like if you're training a POTS dog and they're, recognizing the odor of an oncoming medical episode, if you don't know that it's happening, you cannot force your dog to alert you to it. They have to want to do it. And you're going to get much better results for getting a dog to want to do something because they feel like it versus because they were told they had to. the more positive reinforcement you see being used, the more likely it is you're going to have success with those.
That is amazing. Do you have any red flags for if you're interviewing someone and you're like, this is, if I saw this in a trainer, I'd be like, thanks?
If they put an aversive training tool on the dog in the first session, or they recommend using something before even meeting the dog. And I'm including things like head halters or front clip harnesses, which can be aversive in some ways. Less so than something like a prong collar and e-collar. But if the trainer's first recommendation is to switch whatever training gear you are currently on to something that will help to squash a behavior in some way, that means they're not actually looking to train your dog. They're looking to fit your dog into their training system. And that, to a degree, every trainer does, because every trainer has their way of doing things, but it also shows their lack of flexibility.
Eaten up almost an hour, and I'm so bad because I would keep you here all day, just because I'm enjoying this way too much and I'm loving your puppies. And I also want to be really mindful about your time. So I think my last question for you is there a product for dog train that you're like, oh my gosh, get this yesterday, this is my favorite thing? And if there isn't, is there something that you wish someone would invent?
I wouldn't necessarily call it a product, but I would like people to use more food with their dog training.
Do you have like a favorite thing that most dogs love? Obviously, please don't use grapes, ever, ever, ever.
Yeah, nothing that is going to be poisonous or deadly to your dog, please. That would be bad. But no, just more food. So people as a whole are very they want the food to mean I give you this in exchange for this. It's very transactionary, especially when we're trying to get our dog to do something. It's like, I will pay you this in order to get this. I want the food to be more free flowing. I want the food to just be, you're cute, here, have a cookie. Keep in mind how much you're feeding your dog, so you're also not creating a dog that is unhealthy and overweight. But oftentimes the easiest, simplest, and fastest solution to solving a behavior problem is just throw food at it, and it will stop. It will stop and teach a new behavior at the same time, because whatever they're doing that you don't like stops happening when the food enters the equation. And then eating food is an incompatible behavior with whatever else they were doing before. And then they learn to sniff too, if you throw a handful of food. And sniffing is a self-soothing behavior that can start to translate without the food present.
I'm just impressed that I already knew to throw food at the situation, but it's at myself. So I think I need to like fix that part, and then it might work out well.
It can work for people too. You know, it adds good feelings to situations.
It probably shouldn't be the cinnamon roll I'm going to have after this.
No, but just
ups and downs.
Throw food at the problem. And food can be anything. Like, food can be hot dogs, food can be kibble, food can be training treats, food can be a piece of food that you were just eating that's dog safe that you can give to them. But the more generous you are with your food, the more your dog wants to interact with you and do things for you because they want to. You have kind of coerced them into it by giving them a lot of food, but it's, you know, they're like, oh, this person gives me a lot of stuff, and they don't always ask for something in return, so they're more willing to do something when you do ask for them to do it. So that's my bias, though. There are trainers that do a lot of work without any food at all. I think it's easy to just carry around a handful of food everywhere I go and just, oh, that's a problem. There we go. Fix that. I can deal with it more in a complete way later, but currently that's fixed.
I very much vibe with that thought process. Tara, I cannot thank you enough. I really enjoyed this time with you. And you do a program online, is that right? So if someone doesn't live in your state, they can still use your services.
Yes, so I do private training sessions virtually, and I also just opened up a Mighty Networks thing. I opened it up in all of the confusion with TikTok dying, so I am making it up as I go. I have ideas and thoughts and concepts of plans for what I'm going to do with it, but it is very new, and I'm still kind of learning how the platform works as we're doing this together. But I am starting a Leave It challenge in February, so that's starting on Monday. I don't know when you post this.
You know what? I will switch it. I will post this one before Monday. So if you are listening to this, you go right to our website. It's invisiblenotbroken.com, and we will have a link to Tara's website right at the very top, so you can go right to the link tree into the website. And if you have a dog, you can participate in the Leave It challenge, or, you know, I'm sure as a human you could probably try a Leave It challenge with a cookie. I will be less able to do this Leave It challenge with a cookie than any dog. It won't be cute.
Same. Yes. But yeah, so we're doing the Leave It challenge, and then the space is also currently all of it's free. I'm going to have some paid options later as I get that in the works. But right now it's a space to like share training, share what you're working on, get some feedback, post fun things that you've done with your dog. And then I'm planning a couple of more like group course type stuff later down the road. So
that is amazing. So if you just head over to our website, you'll be able to click there. Also, you'll be able to click right to our YouTube if you want to see Tara's adorable dogs. That was way too much fun and made me completely unprofessional. Not that I'm professional ever, but I get to blame it on the dogs this time. And thank you so much for joining us. Be kind, be gentle in whatever way it looks like to be fierce, and join us next month for our next episode.